He once controlled the narrative. Now the world is listening to his downfall. The room was charged with a tension that felt almost tangible. Reporters jostled for position, their cameras capturing every flicker of emotion. The air smelled of stale coffee and desperation, a scent as common as the murmurs of whistleblower and scandal that rippled through the crowd. It wasn't just another trial. It was the reckoning of a man who had shaped the course of a nation, and now the truth was finally being dragged into the light. Karoline stood firm, her chin held high. Today wasn't just about justice, it was about truth. For years she had been the one chasing shadows, piecing together a puzzle that others had tried to erase. Her name had been whispered in corners of the press, dismissed as a conspiracy theorist, a troublemaker. But she had never backed down. Not when the threats came, not when her family was targeted, not when the system itself seemed determined to silence her. Today, the courtroom was her battleground, and she was ready to make them remember who she was. It started with one whispered accusation, an abuse of power that escalated into a national scandal. A leaked document, buried in the chaos of a political campaign, revealed a pattern of manipulation, of decisions made not for the people but for the powerful. At first, the accusations were dismissed. A smear campaign, they called it, a desperate attempt to undermine a leader. But Karoline knew better. She had seen the files, the encrypted messages, the quiet disappearances of those who dared to question him. The man in the center of it all knew Pope Robert Prevost, had built his empire on the backs of the silent, the forgotten, the ones who had no voice. Across the aisle, Prevost remained motionless, his cold gaze fixed forward. He was the embodiment of authority, his presence imposing even in the stillness. The courtroom had seen him before, smiling at press conferences, delivering sermons with a silver tongue, signing treaties that shaped the world. But now he was just another defendant, his carefully constructed image cracking under the weight of the evidence. His lawyers moved like chess pieces, defending him with words that dripped with polished precision. This is a misrepresentation, they argued, a misunderstanding of context. My client has always served the people. But Karoline had spent years digging through the rot beneath his words. She had followed the money, the secrets, the quiet corruption that had turned a leader into a tyrant. And now, as the trial unfolded, the truth was no longer hidden. A single recording, the voice of a once untouchable authority figure admitting guilt, shattered the courtroom's silence. The audio, grainy and distorted, played with a haunting clarity. It was a conversation between Prevost and a senior aide intercepted months ago by an anonymous source. "They're getting too close," Prevost's voice hissed, low and dangerous. "You know what has to be done. No one questions the system if the system is controlled." The words hung in the air, a dagger to the heart of his defense. The courtroom erupted into murmurs, but Karoline didn't flinch. She had known this moment would come and she had prepared for it. The recording wasn't just proof, it was a mirror, reflecting the rot that had festered for years. She turned to Prevost, her eyes blazing. "You said you served the people," she said, her voice steady. "But who really did you serve when you silenced those who spoke the truth?" The first witness, a former aide who had fled the country, stepped forward, their voice trembling. They described the threats, the late-night calls, the warnings that came with the promise of consequences. They spoke of a system that had rewarded obedience and punished dissent, of colleagues disappearing after asking the wrong questions. "I was afraid," they admitted, their hands shaking. "Afraid of what would happen if I didn't stay quiet, but I couldn't live with it anymore." The second witness, Karoline's former colleague, a journalist who had been fired under mysterious circumstances, laid out financial records that implicated the entire administration. The numbers were undeniable, millions diverted to secret accounts, shell companies, and off-the-books deals that had lined the pockets of the elite. "This wasn't just corruption," the journalist said, their voice tight with anger. "This was a calculated effort to erase anyone who stood in the way of power. And Prevost was at the center of it all." Prevost's lawyers tried to fight back, their arguments brittle under the weight of the evidence. "These records are incomplete," one of them insisted. "They were taken out of context." But Karoline had anticipated the defense. She stepped forward, her voice rising above the murmurs. "You can't deny the truth just because it's inconvenient," she said. "You can't claim innocence when your own words condemn you." She turned to the judge, her eyes unflinching. "This isn't about a single man. It's about a system that allowed him to thrive. And today we are holding that system accountable." The cracked gavel, a symbol of justice once wielded to suppress, now echoed with the weight of accountability. It had been used to silence dissent, to crush voices that challenged the status quo. But now it was the instrument of reckoning. As Karoline spoke, the gavel's sound seemed to resonate through the room, a reminder of what had been lost and what could still be reclaimed. Prevost's expression remained unreadable, but Karoline saw the flicker of something in his eyes, fear, perhaps, or the realization that the walls were closing in. The trial wasn't the end, It was only the beginning of a reckoning.